3, 2, 1, go. Okay, so this is going to be my I'm gonna pause it for a moment here because right at the start there's going to be stuff to talk about. So this is going to be, I guess, the first video in a series to do with basically explaining all the details within the route for the survival mode glitchless speedrun of Fallout 4. So right at the beginning, I'll point out that the video I'm using is of my it's of, what's the time? It's 3:25:50. I think is the time of this speedrun. As of the time at which I release this or end up releasing the final videos of this group of videos, I may have beat my personal best. I may even have a different route. The route that I'm using so far in speedruns differs from the route in this speedrun in 2 places, and in those places I will talk about the differences between routes. So yeah, I'm gonna continue it here. The first thing that's going to happen is that I change the character gender to female. So this has 2 effects. It makes the dialogue in a couple places overall a little bit shorter. I think it's about 5 seconds or so. But it also means that the special perk for your character's gender, which is either Black Widow or Lady Killer. As a woman, you have Black Widow, which is better than Lady Killer because more NPCs in this game are male. And so getting better usage out of that perk as a female character is the other reason why in the speedrun I play as a woman. Now, the other thing to point out here is that when you click OK, it's I think 3.5 seconds until the until your reticle appears. When your reticle appears, that's the official time at which the timing starts, but I typically start the timer a couple seconds earlier, just as a safety precaution, I guess. Okay. Might be a bit hard to see in this video because of the size of the reticle. So the first thing I do is I talk to Codsworth. Then I wait for Nate to walk across the screen. Once he's in position where he just stands there, I talk to him once. And then I wait for Codsworth. Like that, I wait for the Codsworth to turn around and start moving. As he moves across, I talk to him, and then I wait for the I wait for the Vault-Tec guy. So I'll skip forward a bit there. Okay, that was actually pretty good. Alright, so first thing to point out here is that this dialogue plays out exactly as most dialogue plays out, where all I do is I mash X until the dialogue is over. Places where I deviate from this, I will point out. So I just mash through here. Okay, in the moment. Okay, so we set first thing. The name doesn't matter. Obviously, a one-letter name is the fastest to type out. On the PS4, the inputs to quickly do a name is like X and then R2, which makes your character's name G. And now to give an overview of the special point distribution. So usually in speedruns, the meta is maxing out the endurance and maxing out the agility so that you can run for as long as possible without having to wait for your action points to regenerate. But the special distribution is somewhat different in the survival mode speedrun. So the first thing, which doesn't happen here but happens in attempts I do now, is that I have a perception of 2. This basically allows me to skip the special book later on. Endurance is maxed out. So endurance in the speedrun, the more endurance you have, the more health you have, which is useful in not dying. But also endurance affects the rate at which your action points are used up when you sprint. So if you have the same amount of action points, if you have 1 endurance, your action point bar will decrease very quickly. If you have 10, the bar will deplete slower. All the way up until I think endurance 21, where sprinting does not use action points at all. And in the speedrun, we do get to the point where we have endurance 21 and above. So, as an aside, the general way in which sprinting works is that endurance, the more endurance you have, it increases your overall sprinting speed if you take into account the time spent sprinting along with the time waiting for your action points to regenerate. Agility does not affect overall sprinting speed, because the more agility you have, you spend longer sprinting, but you also spend longer waiting for your action points to regenerate. However, high agility affects your overall speed, because the more agility you have, the longer you can sprint after certain times in which you are not moving, such as during combat and during dialogue, and also I think also fast traveling has that effect, especially on very easy. I'm not so sure in survival mode because you only need fast travel into the institute, which I think is only a minute in game time. Then I get 7 charisma. This is the amount of charisma added onto the overall charisma by the time that I barter with cricket, which enables me to buy the 45 ammo, the spray and pray, and a fusion core. And finally, agility of 6. Having more agility is generally beneficial. again, because after dialogue and such you can sprint for longer. But also Agility 5 is the requirement for a perk called Action Girl when playing as a woman. And uh, that that perk does improve your overall sprinting speed. Previously, I used to get intelligence over the course of the run, but that's no longer a thing. So, alright, just to... Alright, well, okay, so... Just to reiterate, in this speedrun, my distribution is 1, 2, 10, 7... No. In this speedrun, it's 1, 1, 10, 7, 1, 7, 1. Currently, I do 1, 2, 10, 7, 1, 6, 1. So the 1 point in agility is moved to perception. After finishing the special stats, I talked to Volta guy once to skip his dialogue. Then I talked to Nate once to skip his dialogue. Yeah. And then over here, I wait for Codsworth to start his dialogue. This is an audio cue, by the way. And then once he says his dialogue, I quickly pan the camera down because the action hitbox thingy of Sean is actually like the footboard of the crib. Then you play with Sean. This causes Nate to go into this room, so I have the reticle over the mobile ready to spin it, so that I can spin it as fast as possible. And then, you know, the dialogue here is as normal, so I'll skip forward a bit. Okay. So here I'm waiting for the door to open. Then you just sprint. So coming up is a trick called sometimes I call it where on the list skip. Sometimes I just call it list skip. Basically up here, I'm in the dialogue with the officer here. Okay, so she says, we need to get in, we're on the list. I typically spam X or whatever the deactivate button is between the words on and the words the. And that sometimes lets me through. I'm not actually certain if it's worth going for in runs though, because it seems to take a while in waiting for him to catch up if I don't get the trick. But I genuinely go for it anyway. So yeah, here I don't get it, so then he does his dialogue, and I'm waiting here. And then I just run through. So I'll go forward a bit. Alright, don't mind the message notifications, because this I'm watching back on a past recording. So first thing I do once I get control is I walk forwards, because this elevator dropping is scripted, so you want to be as far ahead as possible. In this scene, I guess, you can't sprint, so just walk. Don't worry about jumping over any of those rails. But this rail here, you can jump over. I think it saves maybe half a second. I don't know. You can go for it if you want. You can not go for it if you want. Do I look back here? Okay, yeah. So what I do here, in order to ensure that the doctor follows me through this hallway, is I walk backwards. I suspect it has to do with walking backwards being slower than walking forwards, so you don't get too far away from the doctor. But the end result is that he pretty much always follows me. I'm not sure if I've had him not follow me at all. But then you just walk to the walk over here. Now this is another audio cue. So I used to press X to him immediately, but now I just wait for his dialogue. So what I used to do was I used to talk to him immediately. Then he would say just this way, and then I have to wait for him to do his dialogue. But I think it's faster to let him start his dialogue, which means listening out for him to say something. Yeah, so I say, hey there. He says, follow me. So I think that wastes a bit of time. And then once he says, just step in there and put your vault suit on, that's when I turn around and enter the thing. And then this is everything to do with that. That's just a cutscene, nothing to do there. You can mash, activate, or X or whatever to bash on the window if you want, but there's no reason to. You're better off just sitting back. And then this is when the run starts. So one thing to point out is that if you touch the keypad for the Nate's chamber, you can open it up and get a wedding ring from him. But this is pretty slow to get. I haven't timed it. But you know, there's enough stuff that I get to run anyway, so unless you're finding yourself really short of sellables, in which case there's depending on how short you are, you might want to get other stuff first before you go for this. But yeah, there is an item there that you could get. Alright, so we just sprint through here. Coming up, I get a Oh no, I think it's over here. Oh no, I haven't used the baton yet. Okay, so I actually get... Yeah, so right to my left, where the red roach is, there's a baton there. I get that baton so I can use it against the red roaches in the vault. Basically, the difference between the baton and gun bashing is that the baton doesn't use action points, and I think melee with it is a little bit faster as well. So you go through here, you kill this red roach. This next one right here, you try to kill. But you need to pay attention of whether or not you kill the red roach or the electricity does, because this red roach is the only variance in your XP on the way to cricket. And so basically, if you kill the red roach here, you don't need to run past Hangman's Alley on the way to cricket. If you don't kill this red roach, you do need to run past Hangman's Alley. Now you can do as I do and run past Hangman's Alley either way to make sure you don't forget, but you know, just so that you're aware, Hangman's Alley is a necessity if this red roach is not killed by you. So that time Interestingly, I did kill that red roach. So I think the place where I missed the XP was actually later on. Okay. Another thing that's important is picking up these specific stim packs. Not only are they good for just having stim packs, but picking up these stim packs automatically binds stim packs to down on console or 0. I'm pretty sure it's 0 on PC. Picking up the gun for the Molrat Cave, and also ammo is good for selling later on. So yeah, you do that. So in here, I just pick up the 10mm rounds in this run. Now I also pick up the other gun, because that gives me more leeway with barching with cricket, and it doesn't cost that much time anyway. So, you know, ideally you have the baton in your hitting the red roaches with the baton, because this is a little slower. Okay. Now, the animation for the Pip-Boy bit out. But yeah, basically, don't spam circle or tab or whatever as this sequence ends, because you can softlock the game. It's better to tap circle or tab once you get into the proper Pip-Boy screen, even if it takes an extra half second or so. So then you tap X here, and this starts the animation where the big gear, where the big engine thing goes to the gear, pulls it out, and rotates it to the side. This is a long animation, so you have enough time to pick up the 10mm ammo here and here, and then you can jump over to here, and specifically being at this point right next to these pipes causes the elevator to get down to the bottom early, so that once you get past the gear, the elevator is already open for you. But this animation takes long enough that even if you miss this jump, you can try it 2 more times before you start to lose time. So once it opens, right, yeah, so here it opens. As it rotates out, you can jump through as it's still opening. And then go to finish to exit the vaults, and that ends this video. I'm going to be doing pretty much one video for every split, but different splits have different lengths, so some will be short, some will be long. But yeah, that'll be it for today's video, and I'll see you in the next one.